Source Nation. Join us now for Family Mix Mondays with licensed professional counselor Jaketra Bryant. Tune in as Jaketra shows the different dynamics that make up family. Whether you represent the nuclear family, single parent, extended, grandparent, or blended family, Jaketra has tips and advice designed to strengthen your family structure. Source Nation, here is your host, Jaketra Bryant.
Welcome to Family Mix Mondays. Hello, hello, hello. I'm your host, Jaketra Bryant, and I'm really excited about closing this series out with my guest. She was on earlier this month, and I'm sure you're going to continue to just have so much information about bullying and parental involvement that you'll be able to intervene, talk to your teens, talk to your children from so many different points. From our guests we had on our previous week who has written children's books, we are just going to continue this series of bullying and parental involvement. And so before we bring on our guests and before I get into the sponsors, I want to just stop and talk about the statistics of bullying. And sometimes I think that we think that, oh, it's not going to happen to my child, it's not going to happen to me at work, or it's not going to happen to my child because usually they're big or they're tough or they're tall. But actually, bullying is everywhere. And tonight our guest is going to shine some light on what happens in the cyber world, what happens when it comes to photos and how that can be bullying and what it opens up the doors for. And sometimes we don't think about that. We think about bullying in the aspects of the conversations that we've had centered around grades or centered around your clothing or centered around like a kid that cannot read as well or the kid that stutters, and we think of it as teasing. And I think a lot of times we dismiss it because we say, oh, that's just boys being boys, or that's just how girls talk. But no, there is something so serious going around when it comes to bullying and it leading to suicide. So that's just more than boys being boys or girls teasing girls. And so we're going to talk about the seriousness of it in terms of the cyber world. And so I want to know, did you know that over half of adolescents and teens have been bullied online, and the same number have engaged in cyberbullying, and more than 1 in 3 young people have experienced cyber threats online, and over 25% of adolescents and teens have been bullied repeatedly through their cell phones or the internet. Serious, huh? Super serious, actually. I think sometimes when we are quick to give our kids cell phones and not really looking at the responsibilities behind it, when we're quick to buy iPads and tablets, not knowing the seriousness that comes in the cyber world. And so I think that this conversation tonight is really going to open up your eyes to being able to have those sensitive conversations, because, I'm all about breaking my cycles and really building up our families and redefining what relationships and communication looks like. And I think that this is a great place to start by talking about the cyber side of bullying. And pictures. So not only the cyber side of what it looks like if someone's a gamer or what it looks like if someone's like on social media making threats, but taking a look at pictures. And so I want you to really, really think about. And so another fact is that 81% of teens say bullying online is easy to get away with. And 3 million kids per month are absent from school due to bullying. 20% of those kids cyberbullied think about suicide. That's a very high number. And 1 in 10 attempt it. So 4,500 kids commit suicide each year. So we got to do something about that. We got to stop that. This is not something good. We will not make suicide from bullying a pandemic. And so I really want to get this word out and really encourage people, if you haven't tuned in, to go and call someone so they can tune in and really be a part of this conversation with bullying and parental involvement, as we started with cyberbullying and looking at some effects there when it comes to the social media sites and pictures and what it opens up a door for. And so before we bring our guest on, which is Dr. Quanda Stevenson, you've heard her before. She's awesome and so knowledgeable in these areas. Let me stop and thank our sponsors: Zulina Health, Wellness, and Fitness, Paper to Film Productions, Revolution Meals, Renovations, Meet My Types Matchmaking, Blend to Blend Juice Bar Boutique, Urban Grand San Diego, and New Covenant Praise Worship Center. And after the break, we'll have Dr. Quanda Stevenson and I with our conversation in our final series of bullying and parental involvement.
Source Nation, stay tuned. You're listening live to Family Mix Mondays with your host, Jaketra Bryant.
Source Radio Network is just one of the many platforms that is used to fulfill dreams of our listeners and create a purpose that will impact the lives of our communities, cities, and the world. It is often said that great things will happen when a group of driven people work together to accomplish one goal. We're giving people the opportunity to have a voice, translate words that haven't been heard, and paint pictures that no one has seen. Source Radio Network is fueling your life's purpose. How can you listen? www.blogtalkradio.com/Source Radio.
Welcome back, Source Nation. You're listening live to Family Mix Mondays with your host, Jaketra Bryant.
Welcome back, Source Nation. You're listening live to Family Mix Mondays. I'm your host, Jaketra Bryant. And as stated earlier, we are, continuing our series of bullying and parental involvement. We are ending our series with Dr. Quanda Stevenson. And so before she joins me for our final conversation of this topic, let me tell you more about her. Dr. Stevenson received a dual bachelor's degree in criminal justice and political science, master's degree in criminal justice, and interdisciplinary doctorate, which consists of public administration, higher education, education administration, human development, and criminal justice sociology from the University of Alabama. She has presented research related to school violence and crime, bullying, truancy, and domestic violence at several national, state, and local conferences. She is the founder and executive director of several community programs such as Truancy Intervention and Prevention of Alabama and Youth Education Awareness of Alabama and Mentoring Youth. The programs provided information on personal and public safety, school safety, self-esteem education, truancy, and anti-bullying, health, and wellness. And so I do believe we have Dr. Stevenson in the studio with me. So hello, Dr. Stevenson. Welcome to Family Mix Mondays. How are you?
I'm fine. How you doing?
I am doing well. Thank you so much for joining me again on the series to continue it and end it of bullying and parental involvement. And so we shared so much information last time. We had to continue the conversation going. And so today I've given the listeners some more stuff about just cyberbullying and just looking at what that is. And so I want to talk some more about that with you and just some other areas of bullying that happens that I think sometimes we overlook. So what's been your experience with just seeing or hearing about some of your students talk about their experiences when it comes to cyberbullying?
Well, because we know that today technology has played a major part in all of our lives and continues to play even more so a major part in our lives current day, how we function, how we live, how we socialize. If you speak to anyone who is under the age of 15, I'm pretty sure that majority of them would say in some instance they have dealt with or been victimized by cyberbullying. Nowadays, kids from the ages of 5, 6 years old to 15 have really never known a society without cell phones. Not even just talking about technology, cell phones. What we call the interactive communication in regard to using a cell phone and not just having a phone. And so because of that, cyberbullying in itself, the definition is utilizing any electronic technology or technological device in a harmful manner, in a manner such as to target or victimize someone through language, now we have to say in regard to any type of communication where it could be a meme or a GIF. It could be anything in that regard that is utilized in order to share information or post information on a person. And so we basically can consider it electronic harassment, or the correct term of the word is harassment. So any electronic harassment, any harmful communication through social media and using a technological device is cyberbullying. So statistically, about a quarter of our students nationwide have stated through research that they have been victimized through cyberbullying.
Yeah, and that's really sad. Like, I was reading statistics on that, and I was seeing that not only does that happen, how common it's become, that it also, like we were talking about in our first conversation, this actually led to, I believe it said 20% attempt suicide due to the cyberbullying. So that says that there's something to look up to talk about, like, well, what's actually going on that makes a person want to commit suicide from maybe what's being said or what's being done. And so what have you seen as some of the reports is that you hear that's happening? What I guess are some like common conversations, or I know like photos can be something that can lead to a person wanting to end it all because now their private parts are out. But what's been some common things that you hear some of the students say go on with on the cyber side?
Okay, so first I'm going to talk about some of the methods used for cyberbullying to answer your question, and then link it together, and I think it is more understandable that way. Cyberbullying in current day, like I said, could be threats, harassment or harassment, teasing, rumors, gossiping, insulting someone, name-calling, using mean, derogatory labels and words, spreading lies and rumors on someone, using damaging technological devices. And the reason why I always include this more so than what's read in the literature is because now a flash stick or a flash drive or anything that's shareable can be utilized. Someone can get information or copy information, or cell phones that are compatible that are used for sharing. Someone can link to your phone or other devices and you not know, and share pictures that they get from you or information they get from you that you didn't want to be shared. And to answer the other part of your question, basically we see more, I would say, more instances or connections and causal links between our younger generation committing suicide due to cyberbullying than we do to any other forms of bullying. And I would agree with that pretty much, because what we're hearing from our younger generation is that cyberbullying seems to be more long-standing, endures for a long time frame, a long time period. And the reason why is because when you share something in social media, it's out there. It's posted. You can go and you can retrieve it. Even though you might delete it somewhere, you think you might delete it, someone can go back and search it, find it, dig it back up, repost it, share it a million times over. And because of that, it's not the same as if you are physically bullied at school. Say the historical view of bullying of someone physically tripping you up or pushing you in the hallway or at your locker. That happens just at those instances in those moments. And the only people that see it are the few that are around, if anybody's around, because they might do it when no one else is around. But the difference with cyberbullying is you have an active audience. The audience, I would normally about 5 years ago say that the audience is not active. But now I have to say active audience, because even when you choose to not,
I was saying, right, the way things are live now and social media live, absolutely right.
Exactly, because now even when you choose not to do anything or react in a certain way, if you share it and post it, you just interacted. You just became an active participant in the cyberbullying. And so when I talk to kids at schools and different organizations and parents, I have to talk about the responsibility of both sides. the responsibility of the person who is the main person is cyberbullying. But then also when they share the information, the other people who share it beyond that, the audience, they become active participants and they have a role to play. And so their responsibility is to make sure that they don't continue to share the information, they don't spread it, they don't save it. And now we have to talk about the technological side of it. A lot of parents, when I talk to them, they say, well, I don't know if my child is on social media sharing information or what they're seeing. And it is difficult these days to know what your child is viewing and sharing and seeing if you're not on their web pages, on their sites, if you're not looking over their shoulder or requiring them to use their cell phones and other devices in your presence. And so I tell parents all the time, make sure that you teach them young and start out with them with technology if they're going to use it. And what I mean by young, don't get me wrong, because I have some friends of mine right now that I'm talking to who have grandkids or kids who are 4, 5, 6 years old, and they gave them a cell phone. I don't agree with that. I'm sorry. I just do not. I had a conversation over the holidays with one of my long-term friends, and her daughter, she gave her a cell phone, and she's in the first grade. And I'm glad that we were able to have this talk today because this Thanksgiving break really opened my eyes to a lot more. And I'm going to tell you, the way that I learned the most about cyberbullying is from the kids themselves. Because there is no way with me being a professional not knowing. I'm not a techie type person. So I don't just go to all these websites and all these different links and different applications. And I don't use a lot of them. So I have to learn from the kids, and that's the best way, because if you can get them to open up to you and talk to you and tell you things that they're using, that's how you learn what different applications they're using, software, apps. And I'm going to tell you, this one young little girl, she's in the first grade, and her parent did not know that she was on the web just searching anything that came to her mind or anything she saw on television. She would search the word and pull it up. And she's reading and looking at everything. I'm talking about sexual content, all the way to some Christmas gifts that she won, of course. Okay, but then this is what really got me. So I was talking to her, and she said, look at this, look at this. I asked her about her routine at school, because the time before I saw her a couple of months, she was practicing for a dance routine. So she, sits near me, and she pulls up her phone, and she shows me her dance routine on her phone. And I said, so you recorded yourself? She said, yeah. She said, I record myself all the time. So she went through this whole log, and she scrolled through the phone, and I saw all of these logs of her dancing just in front of her cell phone camera, recording herself, reading, eating, in her bedroom, in her pajamas, in her underwear, dancing. And so I said, you do this all the time? And she was like, yeah, and nothing. I just record. And I said, well, what do you do with it? She went to a link, and this is where she uploads with other kids. It was thousands of children on there, and some of them were live. So they were actually live when she showed it to me. We're looking at these kids, and they're dancing, bending backwards, anything you want to name. And it was, I would say, it was more so innocent. The kids just dancing, having a good time. But I know, being in the criminal justice field, I know the harm that can come from that. So I started asking her questions about how often are you on there, what are you posting, what do you see from other kids, and it was really disturbing. I went and talked to her parent afterwards and told them, and she had lied to them and told them that she wasn't uploading anything, wasn't live on these sites, but she had told me she wasn't showed it to me. And so they started asking her questions, and of course she was lying, saying, no, I haven't posted anything, I don't know what you're talking about. And then I told them about the other kids that I saw on there. And so we started having a conversation about it. And my nephew was at home for this holiday, and he's 12. And so I started asking him questions, and he, of course, told me, no, I'm not on it. Yes, I see some of these things. And we actually had to have a long conversation about this topic, because it's at moments like this, when the holidays, when the kids are out of school, when they have more time on their hands, that you really find out as a parent, if you're attentive, more about who they are and their friends and what they're doing. So use those opportunities, parents who are listening to this, use those opportunities to get on their phone, watch them, say, hey, let's look at this together, and just see what pulls up on their phone, what pictures, what sites, because you need to know. And the danger that I was mentioning before is this is a pedophile's haven. I mean, if this person, if any adult who wants to use these pictures and clips for pornography or for pedophilia, they could. I mean, these kids are just actively and voluntarily posting this information for them. So I'm sure that the FBI probably has some undercover links and people on there watching and monitoring themselves for investigations to find these individuals. But what if it's your child and someone notices in the background of the picture that they are from a certain school, and that school is in their neighborhood or in their hometown? Then they go to that school after school looking for that child, or when they get out the school bus. And if you notice right now, we have so many kids who are being taken off the streets right now. Large cities, small cities, rural areas. People are just preying on our children. And so I would advise all parents to be more proactive and active in social media, cyberbullying, and all of this is linked to cyberbullying, because if the child posts information, then another child can go and get that information and say, oh, you were dancing, or you had this certain outfit on, or didn't have anything on. I'm going to post this. And do you know that in the state of Alabama and several other states, we're actually a little bit more lenient in the state of Alabama. In other states, if a child posts a picture or video clip of someone who is half-dressed, naked, or showing their body parts, private body parts, they can be considered a sexual offender.
Wow. I think I have heard that before.
Yes.
And I'm sure lots of parents don't know that. And I think some parents, like whenever I have conversations with people who have who have children who are middle school or 4th or 5th grade, their comment always goes to, well, my kid had a lot to do, and I wanted to know where they were at all times. They have a whole lot. I got to pick them up late from school, or it's for safety so I can get in touch with them. And I think what's happening with our culture is that's the only thought that the parent is having. And I think that is an excellent thing. You can get a tracker, you can get some type of smart watch that shows these particular things if you're trying to indeed know where your child is, if it's aftercare or some safety measure. But I think what's happening is the things that you're naming that the parents don't continue to look in depth with. When it comes to the kid being in the room by themselves, or when it comes to the kid, like you said, tapping into the fact that I didn't even know there was such a live page about where you can upload everything you do. And kids at this particular culture, this particular millennial, they do that. They upload everything. They upload when they're cooking. They upload when they're on the phone. They upload when they shower, everything, not seeing the extent of the harm in it. And I think that's the part that I think the parents aren't seeing and aren't getting. And I think we live in a culture where, I think we talked about this last time, people want to be your best friend. They want to make sure they maintain this relationship with your family, and they're not really looking into, well, hey, there is some consequences involved if I don't be more hands-on, if I am not more attentive to what's happening to find out if bullying is occurring, or if my child is watching and being a participant of someone being cyberbullied.
Exactly. So sexting is a major part of cyberbullying. They can actively post the pictures or information themselves or videos, and then the person can use it against them, or they can post the information themselves and the information is leaked. And what I try to tell parents is that the state can actually prosecute your child, whether it's juvenile court or adult court, depending on their age, depending on the offense. And sexting is a major problem. A lot of times the kids, like you said, they will be in the bathroom and they know it's a mirror, And so they want to record because the reflection off the mirror in their T-shirt or their panties or their underwear or whatever, and they're not realizing that even that could be considered some type of either pornography or sexting if you send it to someone using some type of technological device. And so because of that, they can be charged. And they can be charged as, like I said, a sexual offender and have to register in that state as a sexual offender for how many ever years they tell them, which could be a year, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years. Can you imagine that? So say you were 15 years old and you are considered a sexual offender and register on a sexual offender database, and you have to be there for 10 years. That means that you're on that database until you're 25 years old. So chances of you going to certain colleges, getting certain scholarships, certain awards and honors in the community, you might not be able to receive those because someone finds out that you are a registered sex offender. You can't live near certain schools. You can't live near certain churches. So anywhere that there are a lot of kids, you can't be in those areas or live in those areas. Certain jobs you can't get. So say you were that child that I gave the scenario, the example, and you were 15 and you have to register till you're 25. Well, you went to school, to college for a BA in education or English, and you want to teach kids English in school. Well, you can't get that job because when they do the background check, they're going to realize that you are a registered sexual offender. And you can try to explain your case and say, well, it was something small, some stupid I did, but some ramifications you can't change. Some things that you do, even if you try to explain it, you can't explain it away. And so these kids have to be very cautious these days, and parents have to take a more active role. Same thing for young adults. You try to get a job. A lot of times they don't realize how what they have posted on Facebook and what they call it, the book, the gram, they cut the words short these days. All of those, people go and search you. A lot of your employers will go and search up your name and see what they can find online and on those social mediums in order to find out more about you. And you might not get the job, or you might already have a job and then get fired. And I've had a friend, she wasn't a close friend, but she was in the legal field, and she got fired for some information she posted, personal information she posted online because she put it out there. And some clients made comments about it to the firm, and she lost her job. So we're in
because everything is on character. Everything is on character. And I think that's the thing that people don't realize when it comes to cyberbullying. And I think that's the part that we have to look into because there's so many elements to this. There is the negative part of someone watching, someone putting their information out there, and then someone actually participating in it to aid a person on, and that's actually doing the bullying. And I think there's harm in all the parts. And so
exactly.
And for the sake of like the bullying portion, people, I think the part that I want to make sure that parents are seeing is like, hey, if your child is on a device that has electronics that can link to the internet, or they have a camera phone, to really be mindful of maybe not only them doing it, but why. So you got a couple of things to look into. You got their self-esteem, which may another red flag, and then you also have, is bullying happening? Are they talking to older people that could be pedophiles? This opens up doors for so many things that it becomes a huge picture to look at every single part and not just say, oh, kids will be kids. Those are teenagers. You know, they send a smile or two. They like taking photos in the mirror. No. If you catch your person taking that many photos in a mirror and someone constantly flaunting and taking pictures of their bodies to pose as it, you better believe there's some type of self-esteem issues or maybe some issue happening when it comes to image stuff or bullying or just the comparison or something is going on inside of your child's head that they believe that this is the attention they need to continue to seek or continue to do this behavior.
Exactly, and that's exactly what I told my friend with this situation. I said over the holiday break with her young daughter, I said basically something's going on wrong here. I said this is a sign to you to notice that she's having too much alone time. You haven't clearly talked to her about how to use her cell phone effectively and how she's using it in improper ways that she's using it. I said also it says a lot about her psyche in regard to, like you just mentioned, her socialization skills as well as her psychological, the impact that it has and what she's trying to get the message out to you. She's seeking help. She's asking for a more attention, and whoever's going to give her that attention is who she's going to interact and talk with. And so I started asking her, trying to ask her, but at that point I pretty much cut the conversation short and tried to talk to her mom. But I told her, Mom, you really need to talk to her and see if any people have been emailing her or responding to the web, the website that she's on. Has she been responding back to them? Those are some of the things that you have to check and you have to look at, because a lot of those individuals, like you said, that are out there watching, they will start trying to develop a social relationship with these children and make them think that they're their friends. And unfortunately, they might even say, hey, I know that you go to this school, I know you go to this, and they forget that they've told them this information or they showed it on their Facebook page or however, and they'll say, meet me after school. I'll take you to go get something from the mall, or I'll take you to go get, and it's just as simple as that, and they get in that vehicle with that person, and they're gone. Or they buy them something one time to kind of what we call grooming. That's what it is grooming. They groom them little by little to get what they want from them. The first time they might say, hey, take your shirt off. And they say, oh, okay, I can do that because I got an undershirt on. Okay, next time they say, take your pants off. And they continue to gradually get them to do things that are uncomfortable, that may be a little questionable, but then as they're coaxing them with it and encouraging them and giving them rewards, then they will overlook the questions that they have and say, oh, okay, it's okay, I know them, they've been talking to me, they're my friend. And then same thing when they give them a reward. You do this, and I'll give you a reward. I'll take you to the mall. You do this, I'll give you money. And so we got to teach our kids how this process occurs, because they're not knowing or not wanting to share this information with you. And a lot of times, unfortunately, I have to admit, it's from the home as well, or from family members. Like during the holidays, we got family members around. You got to be cautious at all times and listen to your child, and also ask questions. Be mindful where they are, where they're going. Another thing I saw this holiday season is kids on their cell phone not paying attention when they're in the store. They're in the store with their parents, but they're lagging behind. They're not even watching where they're going. Their head is in that cell phone. They're just watching the screen. You can get ran over. Someone can snatch you quickly and take you. I was, unfortunately, out trying to get some charity items for different organizations we were going to donate to and get some sales on the weekend for Black Friday weekend. And I saw so many parents paying attention to a TV they're trying to pick up and the baby left in the buggy. Or they paying attention to what they're trying to get and fight for items, and the child is walking off and not even realizing where they're going. Or the child is on their cell phone. And a lot of parents give their children their cell phone and forget that while you're using the cell phone as a babysitter, that you have pictures that you have on there that you shouldn't share with anybody, that you have links on there that you have used and they'll go to. Kids can maneuver a cell phone. It's almost like they're born knowing how to use a cell phone these days. I don't know what it is, but they are. They know how to use cell phones. They know how to get on Disney links. Like, you don't even have to teach them. They know how to do it. They'll teach you. So we got to be more cautious with media and social mediums that we're allowing kids to use and allow them to participate in and watch and be bystanders. We got to end cyberbullying. We got to do whatever it takes to get kids to communicate more effectively and not use social media to communicate, because it's a danger. And getting back to the suicide part of it, whether the child is actively seeking attention or they're being abused or whatever it is that is allowing them to stay on social media, we got to help them, have ways for them to communicate, let us know what's going on, what they need, what questions they have so that it won't resort to suicide. And then if they're victimized by somebody, how they can have someone to talk to instead of thinking that suicide is the last resort and they have to take their lives in order to deal with the situation because they feel so degraded and humiliated. So
I agree. I think that a lot of it can be prevented through talks like this. And no matter, excuse me, if a parent feels as if, no, not my child. If your child has a device, then I think that you owe it to yourself and to the child to have a conversation. If they say nothing is going on, then I think you still can be a nosy parent. And they may be temporarily upset, but at least they'll be temporarily here and not move on to something that can be a permanent consequence, whether that is suicide, whether that is jail, whether that is a sex crime, but they can actually be just temporarily upset. Like I tell my son all the time, I'm okay with your temporary emotions because I know the bigger reason that I've just implemented this intervention, and I know what's going on. What's interesting is when you and I were having that conversation last time, and I was talking about how we handle bullying with my son had actually experienced some bullying at school with a kid, and pretty much got tired of the kid picking on him and calling him a baby. You know, he's 10, so calling him a baby and just picking on him. So he, like, responded in such a way that I was like, ooh, he is mad, and he just, like, a very violent physical way toward the kid. And so I had to take a step and I had to look at that because I have several talks with my son and know what's going on all the time. And so the first thing I did is when the school suspended him, they didn't suspend the little boy. And I went up to the school and I said to the administration, the teachers, and everybody was calling me, and I went right up there with him, and I made sure he was very present to tell his involvement with it. And I let them know, I said, my son responded to the fact that I'm tired of this. And I was like, there's a difference between I'm fighting you or I'm hitting you back versus the act that he did that said, I'm angry with you, I'm tired of this. And I told him, I said, so therefore you've missed some along the way. Because I was like, if he's gotten to a point he's tired and he felt like he needed to take measures into his own hand, then you didn't hear something. And so the teacher kept getting very defensive, saying, I watch the kids, I make sure they're okay. And I was like, I'm not blaming you in particular. I'm saying that you did a disservice when you only suspended my child, because what you did is you sent a signal to the other kid that it's okay and will happen. And I said, I have no problem calling that mom and dad right now and shutting this down. And I was like, because what we won't do is have a bigger problem where my son wants to harm himself or harm this kid again like he just did. And so I was like, and so the kid hasn't bullied him, but he probably hasn't bullied him because my son, in a negative way, responded. Now, I don't condone that, and my son knows my steps to take with talking to me about it, talking to the teachers. And he said that no one was present in a classroom. So I had to call that out. I was like, they're elementary kids. No one's present. Stop dismissing it, boys will be boys, and look into it more seriously. And what ended up happening, as she humbled herself and stopped being defensive, she ended up saying to me that the kid actually is struggling with some concerns with both of his parents and that relationship that's going on. And I was like, thank you. Look deeper into it. Stop getting defensive and stop thinking someone's attacking you, and look at the issue. Because you miss it. Kids cry out in a certain way. They're not like us. They're not going to have a talk show where they're saying, well, let's talk about these particular factors here. No, their cry out looks differently. And that's what was happening with that other young man, and my son just happened to be on the other end of it. Luckily, his mom's a therapist, and I can intervene and see all elements of it. But the kid ended up getting hurt as a result.
Exactly, and you don't want it to get to that extent. But like you said, I think it was a good thing that we had those conversations, because it sounded like you handled the situation very well. And I think, like you said, when it gets to the point that the child is retaliating, that means that it has gone on too long, or it got to a point that the child felt like this is instinctual and I need to retaliate in order to save myself, and to let you know that this is not acceptable to me. I'm not going to accept this behavior. And so, like you said, that you had to really get to that point with the teacher where she understood where you were coming from, not that you were saying your child didn't do it, but that let's find out the root cause of this so we can solve it. And remember, that's what our show was about last time, getting to the root causes of it. On both sides, there's some responsibility. And you got to pull in both children, and you got to look at and see what is going on both sides. And I'm glad that you were able to get them to see that. Right. And by her acknowledging that the other parents were having issues, then that child was basically acting out. If he's having problems with his parents, maybe his parents are, separating, getting a divorce, that word baby. See, that says a lot about him and that mindset. He might have been thinking about himself as being a baby. Or he could have been saying to your son, you are a baby because right now I'm having to be more of an adult because my parents are going through this situation. I wish I didn't have to. But you were spoiled by your parents, so I'm going to call you a baby. But I'm having to be more of a man, and I don't want to. So it's always something in the words and in the actions that kids do that you have to pay attention to. And your child had enough. And like you said, we don't condone violence, but he was really saying that somebody needs to help me with this situation and resolve it. And I'm glad that you all are working through that right now and getting it resolved for them. And hopefully the other child is going to get some help as well.
Right. Because one thing I always say is Christian will be fine. And so I always talk about my mom that I think God just has us as a huge sacrifice to open up a lot of eyes to other situations. Because Christian does have several areas from his big brother, from the Big Brothers program. I'm well aware of so many components to things. And so I don't think that's a lot of other children, unfortunately. And I think because of that, then I always say Christian will be fine. But not to say that he doesn't go through things, because we have our factors here, but I am a step to figure out what that looks like and what interventions are necessary. But that's not the case for a lot of other families. And that's my hopes even with the show and for guests to be able to help people also recognize those factors do make a difference as to what's happening. I wanted to talk about for our for our last few minutes, I want to talk about the doors that it opens up when cyberbullying does happen. I know we discussed a lot when it comes to making sure you look back at your child's cell phone and looking back at their devices and being nosy and being okay with being nosy. But I also wanted to talk about the doors that it does open with the pedophiles, because that is something serious. And most pedophiles or most people bullying, yes, the peers probably are 50%, but the other 50% that cyberbullying are adults to young children. And so let's talk about that door that gets open there. So what do you have to say to that particular unfortunate door that does open to other sexual offenders and pedophiles and in that area with cyberbullying?
Well, one thing before we start talking about the pedophiles is one thing I've heard and I've noticed from some adults that they don't notice that they're doing when they use social media. When they're able to use these memes and what they call them GIF the gifts, they actually are using pictures and photos of kids. If you notice, some people do that, right?
Yeah.
So it's okay if it's a movie or something that's already been copyrighted and you got permission to use it. But when you're using pictures of kids, we need to stop doing that. We need to stop using pictures and photos of kids to express and explain. And I'm talking about the ones where the kid is a little baby and the baby is not dressed. Don't have any clothes on, or the baby's in the bathtub, or it's two kids fighting. We need to stop that, because you know what we just did as adults? We just partook in the active participation of posting and sharing little kids in inappropriate or in vulnerable situations. We just did that, and we did it for laughs. And see, people never think about that. But I tell my friends all the time when they post these pictures of their children, make sure it's family photos where the kids are dressed nice, they look good. Stop taking pictures of your children when they're in the bathtub. You just allow somebody to look at your child. Stop taking pictures of them when they don't have clothes on. Don't do that. So that's one thing I want to say as well. Now, the other extreme of that, of adults using kids in photographs or social media and video clips, is the extreme, like we said, pedophiles and sexual offenders. So they look for information. They get online. They like to go to schools. I'm talking about school web pages. They like to look at video clips, pictures of kids, and try to find out what school they're going to. Do they live in their area or near them? You got to think about it. What's that girl's name? Elizabeth Smart. And that other female, they found them only a couple of miles or minutes away from their house. So usually when a child is sexually assaulted or taken, a lot of times the FBI and the police will tell you they look for people in the family first, and they look at neighbors, people in the community, the neighboring communities, because it's somebody who has been watching that child, knowing their habits. And then now with social media, it's even easier, because on your Facebook page or your Instagram page or Snapchat, whatever it is, Twitter, you're posting so much about that child, or that child is posting so much about themselves, who their friends are, what they're doing, where they go, where they like to hang out. And because of this, we're allowing our children to be preyed upon so easily. And like I said, if you haven't been watching this whole entire year on the news, we have had a lot of children who have been taken, and we don't know where they are. We don't know if they're going to be found. And not saying that all of them are taken from someone in the neighborhood, but those are places that you can look and be mindful. When we were all growing up, we could ride our bicycle, go to the playground with a group of kids and feel safe pretty much. These days, kids, even in your neighborhood, riding a bicycle on their cell phone, you got to constantly watch. And I'm going to give you this example of that young lady that I was just talking about, the little girl. She not only is posting information, but do you know that she's calling people? She gets on her cell phone and she calls other adults, and she asks them questions like, what are you doing today? You at work? I need some money. Can I go to the mall? I need a ride to the mall. Can you buy me stuff? That is a first. I'm really, really, really concerned about this child. And that's a flag, because not only is she doing it with friends, and not saying that the friends are bad people, but it is the practice of this. So if she's doing it with friends now and she's this young, by the age of 10 or 12, who would she be calling then? Or who would she allow to talk to her, buy her things, and go and do stuff with her? So that's what you got to watch as the pedophiles and the sexual offenders. They're waiting on kids after school, going to the school bus, walking from the school bus stop, at the mall. A lot of people don't believe me when I tell them this, but the mall and the playground are the two, and in the movies. Those three areas right there are the biggest, or the number one top, I said more than one, are the top 5 places that pedophiles will normally go to watch kids and prey on them. And what they're doing is they're looking for behaviors that kind of almost mirror the same psyche of a sociopath or psychopath. And so what they're doing is they're looking at their prey, and they're looking at these kids, and they want to see their habits, how they dress, who they hang out with, how long they're able to hang out with them without having an adult supervision, what's the distance between where they live from the school, the mall, their church, or the movies. And they're looking for things like that. And they know kids like money. They know they like items. And so that's something that we have to watch and make sure that kids are supervised at all times, and that no one is causing harm to them. These days, people will say, here's my cell phone number, call me right quick or text me, or here's my Facebook, let me get on your Facebook page. And those avenues to let them into your life and find out more about you gives them the permission pretty much and the opportunity to allow them to prey on you. Now, I'm not going to get into all of the classical information like what we wear as females that might allow us to get targeted and things like that. that comes as a way on down the line of characteristics of what they're looking for. The first thing is we need to be more proactive and preventive before it even gets to that point. So, like I said, when your child has a cell phone, there's a really big responsibility these days. And like you said, especially the ones with the camera access, the ones that have social media on them, your child will lie to you all day long and tell you they're not on these different sites. They don't want you on the sites with them. They don't want you on the pages with them, but you need to be. They will make other pages. They will. But you need to show them that you know more about your child than somebody else. If somebody took your child today, would you know who their friends are, where they hang out at the most? How would you find them? How would you go to try to find out where to get your child or who might have taken your child? You've got to know more about your child than the next person does about your child.
That's true.
And
this
then
has been like,
go ahead.
Oh, yeah, no. Okay, I was going to say this has definitely been, like, I hate that, like, our conversation always has an end because I'm just like, oh, my goodness, there's so much information. What we need to do is make sure your book gets out. So that your book can actually be something that parents can pick up, and then this can turn into other speaking events where people are able to really gain the information and turn into CEUs and surface projects and just workshops, because this is something that's unfortunately growing at a negative pace, and that we don't need it to continue to grow. And I think conversation is going to help key, and being that involved parent, not being afraid to answer those questions, looking for these factors, not being dismissive about, oh, not my child. But if your child has a device, your child is susceptible to the actual bullying that happens from so many avenues. But I wanted to give them a chance to get in touch with you, hear about your upcoming book, and just contact you back if they have any questions. So what would be that information so that our Source Nation family can get that out to you?
Okay, again, I am Dr. Q Stevenson, and my nickname as well as my professional name with my publications are Dr. Q, and my email address is drqstevenson@gmail. So that's drqstevenson@gmail.com. You can also reach me at 205-454-0810, and that is my office number in regard to my CAPE program and my TIP program. So I have a program called CAPE, which is Crime Awareness Programming Through Education, where we teach a lot of awareness in regarding to topics such as this, cyberbullying, bullying, truancy, anything involving some maltreatment or harm to children and families. And then TIP stands for Truancy Intervention and Prevention for Kids in Alabama, so TIP of Alabama. And those are the two main programs. In regard to literature and books, I do have some literature, and I need to go ahead and create a main website. You can reach me at Tip of Alabama on Facebook. I post a lot of information and community service projects on Tip of Alabama on my Facebook page. And then also some of the books that I'm working on, my bully that I told you is almost ready. And then the part 2 of it will be more of the more current day social media interactions and awareness that needs to be discussed between parents and kids. So in 2018, look for a lot of the books and materials that will be available to families and kids so they can have these conversations and talk about these topics.
Yes, and so I thank you so much for just being a part of part 1 and 2 of bullying and parental involvement. And I know that this has been such a blessing to people just to gain the information. And so, Source Nation, I really hope you do follow up on any questions and any other things that you may have and all the helpful tips that we did. I want to stop and thank our sponsors, Zulina Health, Wellness, and Fitness, Paper to Film Productions, Revolution Meals and Renovations, Meet My Size Matchmaking, and Blend to Blend Juice Bar Boutique, Urban Grandstand Digital New Covenant Praise Worship Center. And I do hope that you join me next week as I start a new series of parenting and dating. So you don't want to miss that as I talk about conversations that we need to have about dating and what that looks like and how to display some healthy models of relationships while as a parent. And so I'm Jaketra Bryant, your host of Family Mix Mondays. Have a good evening.
it's yours.